soft petals, deep greens, and touches of rose. This is Secret Garden. This design was inspired by palette 392 from the Creative Color Challenge. First, I'll show you what's included in the Secret Garden collection that's available in my Etsy shop, and then we'll make both an earring and a pendant together. So let's get started. Started, we're going to first work on this earring. So this is the earring that comes in the collection this month. So it has nice little double threaded weave down on the bottom that comes in a flower, and then these awesome resin tulips that I purchased, and with that colors, like just the tulip hanging onto another flower. It's just something different. I love these little chevrons. These are actually hematite chevrons. So we have a little bit of gemstone in this one as well. And then the second one, we'll come back here after we get the earring done and make this nice little pendant. I was trying to make two sets of earrings, but I didn't have enough of these little red, irregular shaped square or cube beads. I didn't have a whole lot of those, so we're going to make this one. So we'll go through that one next. Alright, so here's another look at the palette that is the co-winner of March 2026. Okay, so to get started, you're going to take your white thread. Now you can use green thread with this too, obviously, because we're making something that resembles flowers, so you can obviously use green if you want to. I just felt like that going through some of these beads, especially these lighter color beads, and then even this one for the pendant and everything, you can see the thread that goes through there a little bit easier. So I sometimes feel like when you use green thread, it might dull the color of the beads a little bit. So most of the time people aren't gonna even notice that, but sometimes I do, and it just bothers me. So that's why I'm using white thread today. So I just have a comfortable length on my needle at the moment. We're first going to start off down here at the bottom. So we're going to do our little double right angle weave unit. One of my favorite stitches. If you've been with me long enough, you know, for a little while, then you know that's one of my favorite stitches to use. So go ahead and put your 4 beads on your thread and needle, and then go back through that first bead. So now you have your nice little raw unit here. Now we're going to make it a double raw, so pick up a first bead. We're coming out of that first one. And these are all the 8/0s that we're using, and we're going to go through the next bead in line. I have a feeling I'm going to have to move these beads out of the way. I think they're making my camera go nuts. So I'm just going to move some of these off screen a little bit. So that way it doesn't have as much to have to hold on to. And I will tell you which ones I'm picking up, which sizes and stuff. But as of right now, we're just picking up the 8/0s. So we're going to do the second part of the double raw unit, pick up another 8/0, and then go through the next bead in line. We're going to do this 2 more times to create a diamond effect. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back through the first of our double raw unit bead that we added. So I'm coming out of that first bead that we added when we did the double raw, so this top one up here. So now we're going to do a little bit of an embellishment. Now we're going to pick up one of our 15s, one of the red fire polish, which now I can get these out in front of me. And the fire polish sometimes has a little bit of a coating here at the end. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. I think you can. There's a little bit of it poking out right there. Sometimes that makes it a little hard to be able to get the needle through. It will work, you just have to kind of figure out where the hole's at, because sometimes the holes, just when they're doing their coating and everything, sometimes the holes get kind of covered up a little bit. So it will go through, you just got to find the holes sometimes. And then pick up another 15. So I have a 15, a fire polish, and a 15. And then when you bring that down to your product, if you don't drop it as many times as I'm dropping it, we're coming out of the right hand side of this uppermost point. We're going to go to this bottom point down here, so the opposite of the diamond. I'm just going to go from left to right. I only do that because I know tension wise that makes me have my tension be a little bit better. You can always go from right to left if you like to, so go down the same way. I just know tension wise for me it's going to work a little bit better for me. So I'm going to pick up another 15. I'm going to go back through the fire polish, back up to the top, and I usually put my thumb on everything so that way it kind of keeps everything together, because you want to make sure that you're not having too much thread showing. And then just kind of give it a nice little tug and make sure you don't have a whole lot of thread showing. Then we're going to put that last 15 up here at the top. So I'm going from the left to the right of the top one again. So then that gets your little fire polish on the front. Now we're going to turn this around to the back and do the same thing on the back side. So go ahead and do your fire polish portion on the back side and then come back and I'll show you that next step. Alright, so take 2 on this one because I actually went through and I almost finished the earring, and then I pretty much broke a bead. So I'm going to show you where I broke the bead so you don't, so you know what to do and try to keep that from happening yourself. So once you have, excuse me, once you have both of your fire polish on the front and the back, it should look something similar to that. So now we're going to add the stem to this one. Now the stem on this one, we're going to just go through the bead that we're coming out of right now. We're going to pick up one of the chevron beads. We're going to go from the inner portion of the chevron towards the point. And then I'm going to put one of my 11 seed beads on, which are the green ones. And then pull that down. And then when you have it sitting there, it kind of looks like a cute little flower. I mean, this is cute enough to where once we get done with this stitch, you can just put a jump ring on up here and then put this on a little post earring, and you have a cute little post earring, flower earring. So finish off the stitch, just skip over the 11, go back through the chevron bead, and then we're going to go from, because we're coming out of, the one thread path right now is coming out of the left hand side of that 8 right here. We're going to go from the right to the left to round it out. And then I'm going to go through these beads just one more time, just to kind of straighten it up and make sure everything looks good, that there's not a whole lot of thread going through and you don't have your thread wrapped around anything like I do at the moment. So just look at your item, make sure everything looks good, both the front and the back and everything. And then we're going to go back through the chevron, back through the 11. We're just putting a second thread path through these guys. And then go through the 11, and then back up the chevron, and then back through the 8 on our double raw unit. Alright, so there's that. And then that, I mean, you can make a bunch of these because you have several of your chevrons and you've got plenty of seed beads and all sorts of different, you know, the fire polish and stuff like that. You can use different colors. You can make a bunch of these, make this into a bracelet. There's so many different options for this. All right, so let's continue on. So we want to get up to this top 8-0 up here, so that point up there. So just go through the left-hand side, and then all the way up until you get to the top one up there. And then this next part is where I broke a bead. So this next part, we're going to square stitch on a 15-0. Now, this is where you can change this up if you want to. I'm using 15-0s in between our double raw unit and the rest of the tulip up here. You can always use 11-0s if you feel like this is going to be better for you to use an 11-0. Perfectly fine to do that too. I'm using a 15-0. Now, the reason why I broke this one is this. We're going to square stitch this on, so we're coming out the right hand side, put your 15-0, we're going to go from the left to the right through that 8-0. Now, when I did this the first time, the first clip that you're not seeing, I went back through that 15-0 a second time. Now, when we add everything back on, we're going to come back through and we're going to go through this at least 1 to 2 more times. So you can get 3 thread pass through a 15-0 typically without any issue using an size 11 needle. If you need more, and then the wildfire, what is this, wildfire 0.006. So the size of the thread, the size of the needle, and the size of the hole of the seed bead is what is the deciding factor, as if you're going to get more than 3 thread pass through that bead. So I was trying to get 4 thread paths and it was not working. So I'm just going to go through this bead once to square stitch it on. But now I have to get back up through that 15-0 so I can add the rest of the beads on. So we're going to go back through the 15. So this is now thread path number 2. Then we're going to pick up the rest of our beads. We're going to start off with our fire polish. Then we're going to pick up these amazing resin tulips that I had purchased. Then we're going to make a stem for our tulip. We're going to pick up 3 of our 11-0s, 1 of our 15-0s, and that's just to help with sizing and to cover up thread. And then we're going to pick up our chevron in the same way that we did on the bottom, so going through the inner portion, coming out the point. And then we need to have something for our earring to hang on to, so pick up an 8-0. And now that you have all of these on your thread needle, we're going to go back through everything. So go through the chevron, the 15, make sure not to skip anything, the 11s, the tulip, the fire polish. Like I said in the first clip, sometimes that hole is a little difficult to find. You can do it though, it's there. It's just sometimes covered up by coating, so it's sometimes hard to find it. And see how much thread I have hanging out right now? So I'm just going to give it a nice little tug until it's close to the beads. Now I'm going to figure out, alright, so which way did I come through the beads already? So there are 2 thread paths over on this side, and only 1 on that side. Hold on. Nope, I was about to go through the wrong side. Okay. So let me see if I can get this in focus a little bit better. Alright, hopefully you can see that from this 15-0 that there is a thread path on the right hand side over here. So I need to go from the left to the right to get a thread path on either side of that 15-0. So now we're going through that 15 a third time. And this is where I broke the bead, because I was trying to go through it a 4th time and it just was not having it. Actually, I think it was 5 times I was going through it and it just was not having it. Alright, so now we're twisted around. Oh, I did make a knot. Yeah, I made a knot with my thread. Hold on. There we go. I didn't make a knot, I just didn't pull it tight enough. Alright, so now everything is on there, just like that. Now typically I would go back through this one more time and get a second thread path through that 8-0 up there, but I know that trying to go through that 15-0 a couple more times is going to be a hard thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the earring. So I'm coming out of that 15-0 right here. I want to get back over here to where our thread is at. our starter thread. So I'm going to move down to the 8/0 and the double raw unit. And we should still be going in the correct direction to be able to meet up with our starter thread over here off to the side. So I'm going to go through the next 2 beads, and then that is where we're at, to where we can tie off. So go ahead and do your right over left, left over right. Make sure you're not going around any beads with your knots. There we go. And then I usually try to move away from the knot if you can, and you cannot see that. I'm off screen, sorry. And so I'm just going to move through that 8/0 that's sitting right next to everything and kind of try to put that knot inside the 8/0, and then that's where I'm going to burn off. There we go. And then you burn down the little ends. And this is really hard for me to see this far away from my face, so hopefully I'm not burning through any of the other threads. If I am, I'll go back and I'll fix it. So hopefully I just didn't do that. Alright, so now we need to add our jump ring, and these are a little bit thicker jump rings. The ones that come in the kit are much thinner than this. So if you see me struggling here in a second, because sometimes I do with this size of jump ring, your jump rings are thinner, so you're not going to have as much of an issue going through the jump rings. And that was actually pretty good. So now I'm just going to put the ear wire on, and then close up the jump ring. And these are all stainless steel jump rings and stainless steel ear wires for this part of the kit. And then when you get the other one done, then you have a nice little cute pair of earrings with your tulip resin beads. So here is your earring for this project, so meet me back in just a moment and we will start working on this cute little pendant. Alright, so now it's time to make our cute little pendant of this nice little flower type design that I created. So this is using some of the similar stitches. We have a double raw unit down here and we have one up here as well. So there again, one of my favorite stitches. Alright, so we're going to start off with the green double raw unit. So pick up 4 of your 11/0s, and we're going to make that the same way that we did with the 8/0s in the earring. So pull it down, make sure you have a comfortable amount to hold on to, go back through the first bead in your line of beads. And then when you get it all situated, it should look something similar to that. Pick up another 11 and then go through each of your beads to create the little sticky outy points and to create it into more of a diamond shape. And that's number 3. And then this is number 4. Now I'm just going to go through that first bead. I'm not going to go back up through the point bead yet. So this is the first of our original raw unit. So I'm coming out just before the point bead up there. And that's because we're going to go ahead and add our gemstone on. So I'm going to go through the center of the raw unit. So I'm going down the center of it. And then that's going to kind of move the thread to where it's coming out of the center part and not out of the bead. I mean, you don't have to do it that way. Now these I have to kind of explain a little bit. So these guys, I really don't know what type of gemstone this is. I just know it's a gemstone of some sort. It almost looks like it's moss agate, but since I don't know for sure, that's why it's not labeled. Now on some of these guys, you're going to notice some noticeable nicks. Like some of these are going to be a little bit more, the edges are going to be a little bit more hard. This one has a good nick on this side right here. So I tried to go through this bead strand and I tried to make sure that everybody got at least 2 to 3 really good ones to where both sides are pretty well. They're pretty well straight and pretty well cut. And then even this guy has a little bit of a nick here on this side. So yeah, you can see that there. So I try to go through and I made sure that everybody got at least 2 to 3 really good ones, and then the rest of them have a little bit of noticeable nicks. But I also wanted to make this with one of the noticeable nicked ones, so that way you can see that a lot of times when you use bead weaving and other techniques and stuff like that, you can cover up those nicks. You know, you might be able to use bead caps and things like that to help get that from being too much, or seeing too much of it. So I'm going to go ahead and go through my gemstone, and down at the bottom I'm going to go ahead and put an 8/0, and then pull this all back. Then we're going to go back through the gemstone and back through the center of the double raw unit, and then that puts your gemstone and your 8/0 down there for your little stem. So now we need to move to where we're coming out of one of the, whatever these things are called, the pointy outy beads, sticky outy beads. So I came out of this bead right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back through that first seed bead. So that's the bead that we're coming out of. The reason why I know that is because that's where my starter thread is coming out of. So I'm going back through that first bead that we added on the first part of the double raw, and I'm coming out of the point bead we added on the double raw portion of it, just like that. Now we're going to create these arms. So I'm going to show you how to do one of the arms, and then I'll come back and show you how to finish it off. So for one of the arms, we're going to pick up a 15, 2 of our red cubes, and these are irregular shaped. So you can see that they're cube shaped, but some of them have a little bit more of kind of like a pebble look to them. So I just named them irregular cubes. We're going to pick up one of the bugles. Oh wait, sorry, I forgot a bead. Pick up a 15. I'll go through all the beads again because I just confused everybody. Then pick up a bugle, a 15, 2 more irregular cubes, and then another 15. So you should have on your needle and thread a 15, 2 irregular cubes, 15 bugle, 15, 2 irregular cubes, and a 15. And then we're just going to pull this all the way down. And then we're just going to make these arms first, and then we're going to come back and do the double raw unit at the end. So to make the arm first, we're just going to skip over that last 15, go back through all your beads again. So very similar to what we did on the earring as well, where we're just retracing our thread path, and just make sure that you're going through everything. And then come out that 15/0, and let's see. If that happens where you have a whole lot of thread like that, just hold on to your last bead and then pull. And that gets most of your thread back down to your product, to where you can kind of fix it. So now we have to look and see, this is the double raw unit bead that we're coming out of, that you can't see because it's not focusing. So this is the double raw unit bead that we're coming out of. So we're coming out of the left hand side of that bead currently. So we need to go from the right to the left to make sure that we're putting a thread path on either side of that bead. So there again, just similar to what we did on the earring. And then that puts your first arm on. So now we need to move to the next sticky outy bead, and then we do the same thing. Add the 15, 2 cubes, 15, bugle, 15, 2 cubes, and a 15, and then go back through your beads again, making sure that you have one thread path through this double raw unit with the green beads, one on the left and one on the right. So go ahead and add your last 3 arms, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to put it all together. Alright, so once you get those done, then your arms of your little flower are looking something similar to this, flopping around and everything. And I was trying to remember while I was doing these arms, what is it that made me, and that, you know, this little thing just reminds me of something. And I kept thinking, and then all of a sudden I thought of the the game Super Mario Brothers. And I thought about it, I'm like, you know what, this is what that reminds me of, is that the little plant that sits in the green cup or something and then comes out and tries to get the character and stuff like that. That's what that reminds me of, so I don't know. I like to play games sometimes, so there we go. That's probably where it came from. Alright, so let's do our double raw unit up here at the top. So we're currently coming out of one of the green seed beads down here at the bottom again. We need to get back up to one of the points. So it doesn't matter which point that you start with. This is just the last arm that I added, so I'm just going to go ahead and go through this one. Go straight up the, come on now, the 15, the cubes, all the beads. Back up to here to the top. As long as it doesn't come apart on me. There we go. Okay. I was like, great. Did I choose one that is going to break on me? No. Yay. Alright, make sure your thread does not wrap around anything, and then go through that seed bead up here at the top. Alright, so now we're going to be adding our double raw unit. To do that, to start off with, we need to add 3 more of our 15s. Sorry, 4 more 15s. I only have 3 sitting there. So we need to add 4 15s onto our needle. And then we're going to round through this seed bead one more time. And this should be the last time that we go through this seed bead. So that way we don't have the same issues that we did with the earring. Now I'm flipping it over to where I have the 4 seed beads sitting in front of me like this. I'm going to go through that first seed bead. Make sure that it's tight. And then after I go through that first seed bead, I'm going to pick up the next arm in line. So I'm going towards counterclockwise, so I'm picking up the next arm in line, and I'm going to go through that 15-0 seed bead. I'm going to pull that down close to each other. Now we go back to our raw unit here, and we're going to go through the next seed bead in line. Just like that. Trying to do this slow because this is kind of complicated as far as how teaching it. So once you're done through that raw unit again, then you pick up your next arm. And then you're going to go through that seed bead. And then that puts that one on. Then we need to go through the next raw unit, which is this next bead here. I'm pausing because I'm trying to make sure everything is in focus. And then we pick up our last of our arms. And come on now. Where is the hole to the bead? It's over here off to the side. There we go. And then hopefully not get all wrapped up with all the other thread. So that's the last of the arms, so we need to go back through the last of our raw unit, which is this bead right here. And then that completes the stitch. See how you can see a double raw now? You can see the 4 in the center, and then the arms are now our 4 beads that are the sticky-outy beads. So there you go for that one. I'm making sure this one's not twisted. There we go. So there's our double raw unit for here at the top. Now we're going to add our 8-0. So we're going to pick up our 8-0. We're coming out, actually we need to go, no, we'll do it from here. Sorry. Okay, pick up an 8-0. We're coming out of that bead right here. We're going to go to the bead opposite it. So I'm still on the normal raw unit portion, not the double raw unit portion. So not the sticky-outy beads. Only because I don't want to put too many thread paths through those guys. I don't want to run into the same problem that we did with the earring. So after that is on, we're going to go back through the 8-0 one more time. And then we're going to go back through this 15 on the opposite side. So that way we have 2 thread paths on either side of both of those 15s again. And then just make sure it's tight. So now we need to add our cute little bead in the center. So now we're going to move our thread and needle down the center of this double raw unit again. Oh, here comes the sun. Hopefully this doesn't make it hard for everybody to see. That's way too bright. Alright, so I'm going to try to keep it up here so you can see it a little better. So I'm going down that double raw unit. I'm going to pick up an 8/0, our window bead, and another 8/0. And still down in the center here, we're going to go back through the center of the green double raw down here in the bottom and go ahead and go through the gemstone and come on out. And then just take your time in making sure that these beads stay in the center of that cage that we just made. So you may have to kind of move your beads around a little bit, just massage them around until your beads fit in there, because they'll fit, it just takes a second for it to pop in there like that. And then now you have your little flower put together. So we need to go through this at least one more time. So we're going to go through the 8/0, back up the gemstone through the center of your green raw unit down here. And then we're going to go through the 8/0, the window bead, the 8/0 up here, go through the center of the raw unit at the top. I'm pausing again because of the sunlight that's coming through my window right now, making sure that everybody can see it. I'm going to go through this 8/0 one more time because we need to now get back down over here so we can get this thing tied off. So go back through the 8/0, and then we're going to follow that thread path one more time. We're going to go down the center, through the 8, the window bead, the 8, and then I'm actually coming out of that 8/0 close to where I need to be. Okay, so continue through your double raw unit in the green down on the bottom. And I just moved the beads around so I know where my thread is at, because my thread is coming out over here. So I need to go in this direction. And I'm going to go through one more bead. So I'm just picking a bead. It doesn't matter which one. I'm just picking one of the beads, and I'm going through that one just to give it a bead that I can... In fact, you don't really have to do this, now that I think about it, because you're sitting right there. Yeah, let's just tie off. Okay. I think I did go through a bead on the original one, but I don't think you really need to. I think you can just tie off here and be fine, and I think it'll sit just fine. And one thing I will do, though, is go back through the gemstone. There we go. I'm trying to get over here off to the right a little bit more. I'm going to go back through the gemstone and get that knot to be more inside the gemstone. And then that's where I'm going to burn off. So grab your thread burner again. And then burn these two guys off. And then burn it down close to the product. I'm moving it around so I can see it a little bit better. I get really nervous sometimes when I'm burning things down and I'm recording because I can't really see that far away from my head. I usually have my products like really, really close to me whenever I'm beading like this. Alright, so there is that. And then the only other thing that you need is a jump ring that I thought I had gotten one out. Apparently I did not. Like I said, the jump rings that come in the kit are thinner than the ones that I'm using right now, only because I already have the kits put together. And I don't want to have somebody missing a jump ring because I'm using it on my thing. So they're a little bit thinner. They're about the same size. They're like a 4 to 5 millimeter diameter. And then you just put that on, and then you have chain that came in the kit as well, so you can put this on some chain, and you have a cute little pendant after that. So there is our two projects for our, what did I call this? Hidden garden, I think. Is it hidden garden? Now I forgot what I called this thing. Of course I did. Secret garden. Okay, so there's our pendant, and then here is our earrings that we made for our secret garden collection. And that's the Secret Garden set, inspired by Palette 392 from the Creative Color Challenge. The collection is now available in my Etsy shop, and the next Creative Color Challenge poll will be coming out soon. So keep an eye out on April 15th to get ready to vote for the next color palette challenge.